I want to welcome you to the third and final session of Money Matters, which is a series of financial workshops, 3 in a row, sponsored by CBF Virginia and Ministry to Ministers. So we appreciate you tuning in today. I think one lesson we have learned, of course, when we started planning this series, COVID-19 was not a part of our vocabulary. But it has taken over our lives and the lives of many of our clergy. So I feel certain that we're going to have a whole lot more people who will tune in later when their lives hopefully resume some version of the new normal. But we are glad that you are here with us today. Today's session is about retirement is about a lot more than just money. We do know that the financial component is important for a full and meaningful retirement. So we have invited a seasoned veteran financial advisor to come and help us with the first part of the session. And then we've invited 3 pastors to come and be a part of a panel. So we will introduce those a little bit later. I think everybody would agree that if you arrive at retirement and you don't have enough money to live, it's going to be a stressful experience. I'm pleased that Joe Derrickson is with us today. He's going to address that issue. He is the founder and CEO of Retirement Wealth Management in Atlanta. I got to know him through Rob Fox. He introduced Joe to us when the movement leadership team was meeting in Atlanta. So Joe came over and talked to us specifically about some financial issues. He advises for the CBB plan that Rob is a part of. But he has a lot of years of experience, and from my individual conversations with him about the markets and what's going on and what we need to be doing, he is a wealth of information. He has been recognized as one of the Plan Advisor's top 100 retirement plan advisors. So he is known in his field. And we are delighted that he has been willing to invest some of his time and energy in us. And Joe, I am going to turn it over to you with the prayer that our ears and hearts will be open to receive what you have for us today. Joe, where are you?
Okay, let me share the screen with everybody. There you are. Okay, here we go. I think maybe this might make it work.
We can at least see you now.
Okay, well, let me see if I can get on my presentation here today. Is anybody seeing this right now?
No.
Okay. Let me go down to the bottom here and get this thing where it shows on the screen. Is it coming in at this point in time?
Not yet. No.
Okay. Terry, are you allowing me to share my screen with you? Okay. Has this come up now?
No.
Wow. Well, let me start this all over again and see if I get my slides up for you.
Joe Derrickson's network bandwidth is low. That could be why.
That's what our pastors keep saying. My bandwidth is just not wide enough for everything that's going on.
Okay, let me see here if I can share the screen again. Host disabled attendee sharing, screen sharing. So let me get my host disabled attendee screen sharing. How about now?
Nope. Don't you love technology?
Wow. This technology is beautiful. Have you allowed me to get on the screen, Terry, from the standpoint of...
Mark did, yes. He's the host.
Okay, Mark, share screen. I clicked the button there at the bottom, and a screen description says host disabled attendee screen sharing. That's what's coming on my end.
It flashed up on my screen that you were now
Able to do it? Okay. Is this coming up now? Is anybody seeing the slide presentation?
Nope.
Wow.
I say, Joe, just take off and do it without the slides, and we can provide those when we post the video.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry this turned out to be not a presentation you can read, but like Terry said, it'll be available after the meeting. My 35 years in this business has led me to a lot of different people in a lot of different situations that we have made right for them. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of concentration, and everybody's part to make retirement a success. The thing that is of most importance to me, there's three features I think that make a retirement plan successful and make an individual's retirement successful. Is three factors that are going to interfere with their retirement is going to be their health, their home, and their style of living. So under the health category, the story that's been preached for many days and many weeks and years now is that in retirement, potentially, and this is per individual, not just per family, you would end up spending somewhere around $250,000 in retirement for healthcare expenses. I know in my current situation for my family's expenses now, just for a policy, it cost us $24,000 a year to have health insurance for me, my wife, and my daughter. So if you took that amount over 10 years, that's $240,000. So it can add up rather quickly. The cost to move into a retirement home or in-home healthcare, retirement home today is running about $7,000 a month. So in 1 year, you're going to spend about $84,000. In-home healthcare is running about $100 an hour. We have neighbors that have a couple of parents living with them. They're bringing in-home care at $400 a day times 5 days a week. That's only for 4 hours. That's $2,000. So they're spending $100,000 a year for their parents to have in-home care. Those kind of numbers are frightening, scary, and I think that's the thing that the reason I said health care is probably the number one issue with retirement is, do we have enough money for health care? What was done in the past was people would buy long-term care policies. Those policies were good at the time. The problem is that people are living much longer. The average age today for a male is 80 years old. For a female, it's somewhere around 85. So if you retire at 65, you've got 20 years. And if you end up spending like the last 5 years of your retirement in an in-home care facility, that's going to run somewhere around, probably $60,000 to $70,000 a year. It could be $40,000 to $50,000 a year. But that is the reason that healthcare is the primary concern, and have you prepared yourself to cover some of that healthcare expense? There are some great policies out today that provide healthcare for a lifetime. So that if you're in there 10 years, 15 years, whatever the number may be, it totally covers you. Most healthcare policies, long-term care policies, last 3 to 5 years. I know my father, from my own personal experience, went into a long-term care facility when he was 89 and passed away when he's 92. So that age of that time frame is usually that 3 to 5 year window. That's the reason most of the long-term care policies were set up for 3 to 5 years. So from that standpoint, that's good for the cost of living, but it's not good if you're the person that's going to only have 3 to 5 years left to live. I know other people have had parents going to long-term care facilities and they've lasted 10 years. If you're using your retirement money off of that, that's going to go away pretty daggone quick, and you're going to be broke pretty daggone quick. So the biggest concern that most people have is, how am I going to get through that long-term care? How am I going to be able to survive this period? How am I going to have enough money to cover all my expenses? So I would think that you may want to look at, just as a suggestion, long-term care as being one of your options to help save your life and financially in long-term care. It's been a favorite subject that everybody's talked to me about when they talk about retirement. How do I cover my long-term care expenses? You're not going to be able to do it off of your retirement plan. I think that, using the numbers I gave you of 60 to 70,000 a year, and let's say you've got $500,000, well, that's going to speed up in 4 or 5 years. And then what do I do? You either got to find someplace else to move, your parent or yourself to. And I know from my wife's experience, her mother went into a long-term care facility and had to move out in the last 2 years of her life, and she had no money, and her and her 5 brothers and sisters were paying for everything. That led them to having to move her to a Medicaid facility. And I can tell you for a fact, if you go into a Medicaid facility and just look at it on the inside, you want to die, because it is the epitome of just the worst experience you could ever have compared to a traditional just long-term care facility. So that's something I think should be number one on your list to consider, look at, think about, and see how you can cover yourself during that period of your life. The second big thing I talked about was your home. Have you paid for your home? Is your home fully paid for? How are you going to pay for that after you quit earning income? Like in my situation now, we've been in the same home for 21 years, so I've got 9 years and this home will be paid for, and that, we'll be able to accomplish that goal. But if I had, 20 years to pay on this house, we'd have to move out of it, because I wouldn't be able to make enough money to make 20 years of payments on a house that you've been living in, that you've enjoyed living in, et cetera. So in that scenario, I think you're definitely want to make sure you at least have your house paid for, close to having your house paid for. And again, another new concept that's just come up by the federal government, which I hate to mention this term, but most people pass out and fall over and laugh and everything else, but it's the reverse mortgage. So I know that's an ugly word. It's probably not a good Christian word to use, but it's a word today that the federal government has figured this out. And the old school, reverse mortgage, that doesn't exist anymore. The new school reverse mortgage is run by the federal government. You might say, well, that's not good either. Well, this is a really good plan. I mean, it's one of those things where you only have to put 20% down on the house you want, and that could be the house you're living in. And if you've got 20% equity in that house, they will give you a reverse mortgage, so you don't have to never make another payment. You might say, yeah, but I want to leave that to my children. That's a great idea too, or other members of your family. And should you pass away during that period of time, the only thing that's going to be paid back is what you owe in that house plus interest. So let's just say you took a reverse mortgage for $100,000. 20 years later, you pass away, and the net of all that is, to say, 150, 200,000. But the value of that property is 400,000. If you or the family pay back what you didn't pay plus interest, it becomes theirs. They get the first option. It's not put on the market. They don't repossess it. I know my father had a reverse mortgage. Again, I'm using family examples, but he had a reverse mortgage. In fact, we're still dealing with the court situation now, where when he passed away, the company had the reverse mortgage and gone out of business. They then left that to somebody else, and the court records had to be chased down. And now that property's been sold, because we had no title to it, no way to get access to it, because we didn't even know who it was with. That property was put in foreclosure and was sold at auction. And since then, the federal government's got involved and now is trying to repossess that house from the individual that bought it at auction. Now, my reaction is, why didn't the government look at this and say, wait a minute, this house has got some issues with it. We're not going to auction it off. Let's continue to maintain it, et cetera. And then, we'll see what happens. But it didn't happen that way. So, we couldn't go back to him. He wasn't alive any longer. Say, Dad, what did you do? How'd you do it? And so those are the issues I think that people have the most distaste for on reverse mortgages. But the new reverse mortgage makes the family that wants to do the reverse mortgage go through a training program for about 30 days. I don't mean every day of the week, but they got a 30-day training program to explain to them how this is going to work, what you're involved in, and what's going to happen to your life should you pass away. They then mandate that you have a set of beneficiaries that they are informed of as to who's going to who's going to be the beneficiary of this house? So that way there's parties in your family that stay involved at all times, and the house can still go to them, based upon your passing. Now, in that situation, that's husband and wife or both spouses are entitled to live there until they, pass away. So it's not something that if the male spouse dies, the wife doesn't get to keep it, or the wife dies, the husband doesn't get to keep it. It's both parties would have to pass away to be able to lose that piece of property. So I think the home thing is another item of concern that you might want to be considering as to how am I going to live, where am I going to live, and how am I going to afford to pay for it. And I think the last thing is your lifestyle. A lot of people say, hey, I'm retired. I want to go travel. I want to chase the world down. Well, probably not today with coronavirus, but, so from that standpoint, but people do say they want to get a motorhome. I think Gary Skeen did that. He bought a motorhome, and him and Suzanne wanted to travel the world. Well, at least across the United States anyway. And they did that a few times and found out, wow, this is going to be a challenge driving a motorhome back and forth. So they decided that wasn't the route they wanted to go. But, people do those kind of things, and they do go out and buy equipment. They do go out and travel, and that becomes a pretty expensive event. I think we all know traveling is expensive anyway. So again, let's look back at that retirement account. Do you have money for that? And are you going to be happy not traveling, not doing anything, not playing golf every day, and all the other things that are involved with your lifestyle? Maybe you want to do some charitable contributions. Maybe you want to, who knows? But you have to have the money to do that, and don't put yourself at a disadvantage where you can't buy groceries, you can't pay utilities, and so on and so forth. So I think, again, it's health, your home, and your lifestyle is going to end up determining where you're going and how you're going to go. It's been determined that if you're going to get Social Security, being one of those key components of income, Social Security only replaces about 30% of your income. I know that I've talked to pastors who don't even have Social Security. They've never paid into Social Security. So that 30% has gone away to begin with. So what am I going to do to replace that? That's a big question. I think the other thing people are doing is they're finding that they have to work a lot longer in life than what they have been thinking about. I'm going to retire at 65, 66, 67. Except I realize that I don't have any money. So how am I going to pay my bills? And I've got, a $250,000 retirement account. So I think that in the scenario of Social Security, remember, that only pays about 30% of your replacement income. So where's the other 70% going to come from? Hopefully part of it's going to come from your retirement package. And getting into that just briefly, take the number that you have right now, multiply that times 4%, and that's all you should ever be taking out of that retirement account. The facts and figures have proven over and over and over again, unless you've got, $10 million and you only need $1 million to live on. But if you've got, a small account balance, and who knows what small is in your terms, but if you had $100,000, the most you could take out of that, because you're expected to live about 20 years, is going to be 4% of that 100,000, or about $4,000 a year. So that's, $350, $400 a month. So that's another portion of your retirement check. And the final portion is, where do I get my other final portion? That's the big kicker. And does that mean you work longer to grow your retirement account, to make it a bigger retirement account? That's really up to you. I mean, people today are working longer. There's no doubt about that. I think that the big going back to Social Security is put off taking your Social Security as long as you can. You're going to increase your retirement money by 30% of that. Social Security is going to go by about 30%. So if you were going to get $1,000 a month from Social Security and you wait until you're 70, and you're going to get $1,300. So $300 a month is a lot of money in retirement. So can I wait that extra 4 years, extra 5 years? Do your best, try your best to try to get there, because 30% is a significant amount. I mean, if you're getting $2,000 a month, you're going to get $600. So in essence, Social Security waiting is a key component to Social Security. Don't rush into Social Security and lose out on about 30% of the income that you should be getting. I think another factor is taxes. The good news is, with a 403B plan like we've got with Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, Church Benefits Board, is the money you take out of your retirement account that's considered a housing allowance is non-taxable. So from that standpoint, let's say you take out 30,000 a year out of your retirement account. That's completely non-taxable as a housing allowance. The money you might be earning on the side, the first 34,000 of any income is exempt from taxation. So you're not going to pay taxes on that either. So in essence, if you took 30 and 34, you're making about 64,000. Can I live on $60,000 or 5,000 a month? So put together all your expenses, figure out what they might be, including taxes, insurance, replacement equipment for your home and things like that. And again, that's where the reverse mortgage comes into play. When you get a reverse mortgage, any equity you have in the house, let's say you have 200,000 equity, that automatically becomes a line of credit for you. And you can simply ask the federal government to send you $10,000, for a brand new air conditioner, or $10,000 for a brand new furnace, or whatever it may be. So you do have that line of credit. You don't have to go apply for it. You don't do anything. Just ask for money, and whatever equity you've got. If it's 100,000, I'll give you 100,000. And remember, that's the money that your family is going to have to pay back. So you got to think about that too. So, but it does offer you the opportunity to have available credit without having to go apply to bank and try to get your money from the bank. So I know Terry said I got 30 minutes and I'm on 23 right now, so I got 7 to go. But I think that those are the kind of things that I was going to present on these slides today. It's unfortunate that we didn't get this to connect from a technology standpoint, but in some respects, maybe I covered things that I couldn't cover. But the things you got to consider is, how am I going to handle my health care? How am I going to handle my home? And how am I going to handle my lifestyle? And then sit down and figure out what your budget is, figure out how much potential revenue you're going to make or income you're going to make to pay for those bills, and what's your shortfall going to be. So I think if you do that, you're going to find that things are going to be maybe better than you thought they're going to be, or worse. But the last thing I think you have to consider, and that's what we're talking about, I've got a slide on that. Think about inflation. Inflation, is killing everybody. In fact, I tell my wife when she comes back from the store weekly, wow, what the heck is this, check amount, or what is this amount for? So, well, that's what the cost of groceries have gone up so much that, we're paying, 10 to 20% more than we were paying in the past. Think about 10 years from now, if you retire, wow, how much more am I going to be paying for groceries then? Those are the things that really damage a retirement, is things like inflation, things like taxes, things like, the replacement of home costs, et cetera. And if you sit down and go through all those things, you can probably get a pretty good idea. Do I need to put more money into my retirement account? Do I need to save more? Do I need to downsize in my home? Do I need to do this? Those are big decisions that you're going to make if you're going to have a successful retirement. Otherwise, it could be a pretty painful and long retirement and a situation that you're not going to be happy with. I don't know, I didn't cover 99% of everything, but I got a lot of stuff in. So I know Terry's got me to 5 minutes now. If you have any questions for me at this point, I'll be glad to answer any question you've got. Again, the slides will be available. It's got my contact information on the last page. Feel free to call me anytime on anything you want to talk about concerning this particular subject. I will not charge you a penny for that time, no matter how many times we talk or how long we talk. So this is a free service from me to you, courtesy of CBB. Any questions?
Joe, what are your thoughts about, I know there are a number of financial advisors who tell clergy to get a 30-year mortgage when they're older, so that they make sure that they're taking full advantage of the housing allowance. How would you advise a clergy person regarding that? Is it better to go ahead and pay off your house, or should you carry a mortgage to make sure you're taking full advantage of the tax benefit?
And that's an extremely good question, because I think that from your own standpoint, if you're going to take a housing allowance, somehow you have to have some cost applied to that housing allowance. I don't know for sure, because I'm not an expert on housing allowance. I know a lot about housing allowances, but I don't know what the government really allows in that arena. And by that I mean this: can I include my yard maintenance? Can I include if I buy a new air conditioner? Can I include? In other words, if all those factors were included, quite honestly, a 30-year mortgage is not going to do a whole lot for you anyway. I mean, with today's rates. I mean, let's just say And today's rates, if you had a couple $100,000 house, you had a 30-year mortgage, you're probably going to pay $500 or $600 a month for that. If that's all you can turn in is $500 or $600 a month, that's, you know, $6,000 a year. You want a lot more than that from a housing allowance to live on. So I think from that standpoint, I think what I would want to do is have some tax attorney tell me, or some CPA, in a housing allowance, these are all the things you can claim legally and not get into a tax violation with the federal government. So I would tend not to think I mean, I agree the housing allowance is the key to all this, but remember what I said, the first 34,000 is not taxable. So if you took out 25,000 and you didn't claim it as housing allowance, you're not going to pay taxes on it anyway.
Okay.
So there's a workaround there. Be careful, because I think you don't want to be 10 years into that mortgage and then all of a sudden you really have some issues occur, and now I got 20 years to pay and I'm going to get kicked out of my house.
Right.
And it's just a thought, but you know, there's many thoughts on that. I think that's certainly a good idea. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I also think that, remember, the reverse mortgage, you can make all the payments you want. You know, if you took out a reverse mortgage for, you know, 160, you want to make any payments, that's fine. Or if you want to make payments, make all the payments you want, and that is reduces that mortgage payment all the way down. So that one day, if you want to turn it off, you can inform the government, I'm turning off my payments. Good. No more payments for the rest of your life. You can still go back and make payments at a later date to offset that mortgage. That's totally, so in that situation, you have multiple options. Whereas reverse mortgage, you have no option other than make your payments or lose your house.
Okay. Other questions for Joe?
Now I gotta have one more question, because I was presenting one time at a university and I was in a group of about 50 people and no one asked a question. I said, well, I don't get paid today if you guys don't ask me just one question. And all of a sudden I got 3 questions. So I got paid 3 times. So come on, give me one more question.
Well, I could
I
make
put a
a
chat.
comment.
I mean, a
that
question
is,
in the chat.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. If you've got a question, go ahead.
Sure. So I was just wondering if you can still claim housing allowance on your mortgage after you have either retired from active ministry or currently not in active.
You can always claim your housing allowance coming out of that retirement plan, no matter what.
Yeah, my comment was going to be the good news on the housing allowance is it includes furniture, utility bills, flowers you buy, and it's considered decoration. All of those you can count as housing allowance. And we haven't needed a mortgage to equal what we take out from our 403B to reach our maximum. There's plenty of things out there that you can apply that are recognized by government as legal. And it is a wonderful, wonderful tax deduction.
And that's what I thought, but I didn't want to say it because I thought, there's a ton of things you can claim other than the mortgage. So
I should say tax exclusion, not tax deduction, but tax exclusion.
Tax exclusion, yeah.
I think it's up to the fair rental value of the property in terms of what you can claim for the house itself.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, are you looking at the chat screen?
I'm looking, yeah.
Michael Brooks had a question.
Okay, let me see here. Let me pull it up real quick. The other one about the retirement income ministry. Is the question, Michael, about the number of ministers continuing beyond 70-72?
Yes.
Okay. As far as I know, the ministers that I'm currently working with, they're all working past 70 and 72. And in fact, Daniel Vessel just retired about a year ago, and he worked all the way up way past the age of 70. So, I know that he wanted to do that because he felt comfortable doing it and enjoyed doing it and just wanted to have, an active role in a church. So.
Yeah, we teasingly refer to that as retreadment.
Oh, okay.
Most clergy find their way into some avenue of ministry in one way or another, but not all. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment.
Okay.
Any final questions?
Well, thanks for your time today. It's really been enjoyable, and I look forward to anyone that wants to give me a call, please do. And hope everybody has a great Memorial Day weekend, and best of luck and be safe.
Thank you, Joe. Rob, you want to say anything specifically in terms of what CBB can do for folks as they're moving toward retirement, financially speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. We are putting together some Zoom calls where we can visit with you one-on-one and offer you counsel in terms of what you're preparing. We're also working with Empower Retirement, our record keeper, to give you counsel and advice. So if you're interested in that, we'd be happy to visit with you one-on-one. Also, we do a similar presentation with you as a couple if you want to, or your church, to talk about the roadmap to retirement, which does talk about leveraging housing, as Joe has mentioned. It also talks about Social Security and reaching that full retirement age, so you can really leverage really 132% of what your Social Security would be. So yes, happy to do that with you, and glad Joe shared what he did today. Those are good starting points.
Very good. Well, thank you, Joe. We will now transition to our panel, and I have prepped these folks a little bit by telling them some things to think about, but we are delighted to have three participants who are on here with us. They are retired clergy. Bert Browning is a retired Baptist pastor. Nancy Stanton McDaniel is a retired Baptist pastor. And Bill Palmer is a retired Disciples of Christ pastor. So we appreciate very much you giving us your time today. It is important that we heard what we heard from Joe earlier, but we realize that retirement is about a heck of a lot more than the money that we have to either spend or not spend when we get to retirement. So we want to chat with you a little bit about what's involved in a full and meaningful life in retirement and how you've gotten at it, because we know that there is no cookie cutter approach here. Folks are getting at it in different kinds of ways, many in clergy roles and many not in clergy roles. So we have selected you on purpose because you are getting at it in diverse ways. And so we look forward to hearing you tell your stories. So I've asked you to introduce yourselves, tell about your ministry experience a little bit, and how long you've been retired. Let's start there. Bert?
Okay. Yeah, Bert Browning. I retired after 37 years of pastoring Virginia Baptist churches. In 2013, I was age 62. Terry and I were on church staff together for a number of years, so he remembers my vow that I was going to retire at 62, and I did, from pastoring churches. Frankly, 37 years of pastoring Virginia Baptist churches was enough for me. I was approaching burnout. My wife, Rose, and I have raised 3 daughters. They're all married. And now I find myself having been retired for 7 years, which I find very hard to believe.
That is hard to believe.
Yeah. Do you want me to go into what I'm doing now, or let everybody kind of get up to
Yeah,
speed?
let's just do a brief introduction first, then we'll come back to what's being woven into a full and meaningful life for you. Nancy, go next.
Well, I was an associate minister of education, associate pastor for 23 years before I got the opportunity to be a pastor of Rhodesville Baptist Church in Rhodesville, Virginia. And I was in the active ministry for 40 years when I actually retired. And I retired at age 66 because mainly because I really wanted to work longer. I'm one of these people that really enjoys all the ministry things. And I wanted to work longer, but I realized my mother was 92 at the time, and she was still very healthy, and I wanted to share some time with her while she was still healthy. Well, she's 96 now, and she's still healthy, and I'm very grateful for that. Slowing down a little bit, I think the coronavirus sheltering in place time is taking its toll a bit. But I say that I'm my mother's long-term health care, but actually we take care of each other here in this home that we share, the home that I came to when I was 2 months old. So I came back to live here after 48 years and to share this home with my mother. And I did take a job right after retirement as a music director at West Hunt Baptist Church for a year, but I gave that up after a year so they would find their permanent person. I think they would have taken an interim for a while. So I did that for a while, but for 2 years now, or I guess a year and a half or something, I have been at home and doing the retirement thing.
Cool. Bill, tell us about your journey.
I think there you go.
I'm Bill Palmer. We live here in West Point in a home that we purchased when we came here in 2000 and served the Christian church in West Point until 2009. And then I had 2 shorter ministries after that, which were intentional interims. And the last one was a fabulous intentional interim that lasted about 18 months in a church that had lost a beloved minister almost simultaneously with a tornado running through the town and leaving the church seriously damaged. So I came in while the church was doing search and call and repairing their building simultaneously. And that was a really challenging ministry and ultimately an extremely satisfying one. We were able to somehow work it out that the minister that they called to be their permanent minister came within a month of finishing the work and restoring the building. So at that point in time, I thought, okay, this is a good time to go. And I was 66, so I started Social Security at 66, and thought to myself, not sure what the next step is, but I have a feeling that the Lord has something for us, and I guess I'll talk about that a little while.
Yes. Very good. Okay, coming back around, Bert, tell us what you're doing in retirement. What's giving you joy?
Yeah, well, I did a couple of brief interims and I've done some supply work, but I found out that the interims just kind of cramped my style. I had been tied down for so long that I was happy to go into the interims and I was equally happy to leave them. I just that's for me. That's what worked for me. The first year that I was retired, I worked on saying no. And I was pretty successful at it because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and I didn't want to tie myself up again too quickly. So for me, I said no to pretty much everything for the first year after I retired. And then I started doing interim work and supply work. The first thing I did was to take training as a Virginia Master Naturalist at Pocahontas State Park. Some of you know where that is. And so I'm a certified Virginia Master Naturalist, which basically means I know very little about a whole lot of things and how little I know about a lot of stuff. But I monitor bluebird houses these days. I volunteer at Pocahontas State Park when there's no coronavirus. I'll just go through my list. I've been a member of a Ruritan Club, which is a civic club. For a number of years, I've continued to be in that. I know how to make Brunswick stew and sell it. Some of you are familiar with that. Mm-hmm. I've continued to serve on some trustee boards for Virginia Baptists, and I find that very fulfilling. I serve as a volunteer chaplain at NASCAR races in Richmond when they are in town. And everybody thinks that's really funny because my 2 favorite things are NASCAR and pipe organs. Oh, you figure that one out. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a support group of, we call it a lunch bunch. I've been meeting with the same group of Virginia Baptist ministers. Some of us have been meeting together for over 20 years, twice a month for lunch. And we're doing Zoom now. We're trying to social distance from each other. but that's been very, very fulfilling for me. And we keep grandchildren on occasion. And then I took up yoga and exercise, do a lot of walking and exercising. And oh, and I teach Sunday school on occasion. And my wife and I both sing in the church choir. So we have lots of things going. We have a lot of irons in the fire, and we don't get paid for any of them at this point. And we've been fortunate to not have to be paid for a lot of things. And we're enjoying what we are able to do and give back to a community and not be on anybody's to-do list.
Cool. That is a very diverse list of things that you're involved in, Bert. That's good. That's cool.
Good
Nancy,
stuff.
what's up with you?
Well, I also have a couple of support groups that are really important to me. The peer learning group that I've been a part of and convener of for probably 15 years was a support group before that. And so it's been going on for about 20 years with different people joining and leaving and joining, but we meet once a month, and we're meeting by Zoom now. I also have a women pastors group that Barbara Boggs started through the Dover Association that I absolutely love, and we meet by Zoom now. We meet once a month, usually for lunch. And then you know, and I enjoy both of those. I'm such a people person that I guess the coronavirus sheltering in place has been hard for me from that standpoint, because I see somebody, even my brother and sister-in-law come over and sit on our porch, and I'm thinking, oh, this is wonderful. I see some other people. But, so I really enjoy those support groups. I do serve still with BGAV, Memorial Committee Chair, and I'm also on the William and Mary BCM Alumni Association and Virginia Baptist Women in Ministry. I'm moderator of that. I'm pretty much, in about a month or two, I will be the chair of every committee I serve on. And sometimes I don't like that, and I don't exactly know how it happens, except that I'm not good like Bert, and I can't do it very easily. I really thought I was going to travel a lot, but now at my mother's age, she really doesn't want to go any place exotic she doesn't really want to get on a plane again, even to go to Texas to see my brother. But we do enjoy short trips to visit family in South Carolina, and we love to go up to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to the Amish country and see plays, and I have friends that I enjoy visiting and meeting for lunch. And recently I've decided to go back to the piano and try to go through the hymnal and play hymns. Nobody would want to hear it, but I'm very proud of myself. I took piano lessons for a lot of years, and it really didn't take, but I'm working on it. I'll never be able to play in a church service or anything like that, but I can read music and direct choirs and things like that. I'm good at that. But so I've taken up the piano, and I've taken up a little bit of yard work that's a little bit more than I used to do. So I've been enjoying that, and walking and making sure my mother and I exercise every day, because we were faithful to the Y every day, and now we can't go to the Y.
Mhm.
So that it pretty much, I say at the end of the day, I'm not really sure what all we did, but the day sure went fast. I never think the days are long in this sheltering in place, because I'm doing something, even if it's watching television, I'm doing something. But I find my greatest joy comes in other people, being with other people. I will say this, I still have not found a church home. I think I might have, but then the coronavirus happened, and now I haven't decided for sure. So I'm still a member at Rhodesville Baptist Church, and have been for these 3 years that I've been retired. So I'm trying to decide where to land as far as a church home near me. Pretty close, I think. Pretty close. But that is a hard thing, I think, for pastors when they retire, finding the right church home. So I just thought I would throw that in as an issue that hit me during retirement.
Mhm. It is
3 years to figure out where was going to be a church home for us.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm right at 3 years now, Bert, so I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, that is a difficult journey.
Mhm.
You've known a people for an extended period of time, and they are your home, and
Mhm.
you realize at some level that's not the right place for you to be any longer. It's a journey for sure.
And
And
could
I
I
will
say,
say, I also promised myself that I was not going to go back to Huguenot Road just because I had pastored there for 18 years.
right?
And I didn't think it was fair to the next pastor for me to hang around. So we would love to have been there, but it just felt like that wasn't the best thing. And I think that's turned out to be a good decision as far as I'm concerned.
Not that they haven't begged him to come back a
I'm
lot.
sure. I'm sure.
Okay, Bill, how are you weaving your way into this retirement thing? What's meaningful for you?
When I retired at 66, I was doing a lot of praying about what the next chapter in my life would be. God has granted me health and strength. In fact, the final church that I served gave me a cash gift when we left, and I took that and bought myself a very nice bicycle. And I put a lot of miles on that bicycle, and it's really good exercise. And we're fortunate here in West Point to have lots of places where I can ride, where I'm away from traffic, and the the scenes that I see along the marshes and along the Pamunkey River are just just wonderful in terms of not only making me healthy through the exercise, but it's just spiritually and mentally delightful to go riding along in these beautiful locales. So that's one thing I've been doing. And a week went by after my retirement before God started to answer the prayer I had about what do I do next. And I received a telephone call, and shortly afterward, two former chiefs of the West Point Volunteer Fire Department were on my doorstep. And they came in and they said, Bill, we've just lost our chaplain. The chaplain of the fire department had retired and moved from the area. We'd like you to come and be our chaplain. And so I thought about it, and I said to them, if you would like to have some to a meeting once in a while and says a prayer, I'm really not interested. But if you would like to have somebody who does real chaplaincy and is a real pastor to the people in the department and the people the department encounters, then I'm the man for you. And that's exactly what turned out. So my ministry is twofold. We have about 40 members in the fire department, and they are my new congregation. And that number changes. People come in and out just like in churches. But I also get to minister to traumatized families who are going through the worst day of their lives. And so they call me, and they know they can do this at all hours of the day and night. And I go to places where people have died of drug overdoses or suicides, and I perform last rites for the dead, and I minister to the families who've been traumatized by these experiences. I'd been doing this for a few years when I got a call from our police department, our chief of police, and he said, I really like what you've done with the fire department. Would you also come and be the chaplain of our police department? So for the last several years, I've also been the police department chaplain. We have a police department West Point is a nice little self-contained town. We're one of the 2 communities in the Commonwealth that has its own public school system. And we also have our own police department, which has 10 members, but we are the smallest accredited police department in the Commonwealth. So we're quite proud of that. And I've done various things with the police department. Much of what I do with the fire department also is what I do with the police department on some of these bad calls. We have both police and fire responders. I enjoy it very much. I've done some different things with the police department. I ride along with officers. Riding along with an officer gives you a wonderful opportunity for one-on-one counseling. And that's usually what happens is as we're riding around in a patrol car. I even had the opportunity to go with the chief of police and interview a murder suspect one day because the chief believed that maybe an appeal to his soul might be a good thing in that interview. And I'm sorry to say that he did not feel the same way the police chief did. And that case is still open. But it's been a great experience, and I'm really enjoying it. It's clear to me that in chaplaincy, you have a kind of ministry where the rubber meets the road. It really does. It's about life and death, and I've really been enormously gratified and satisfied by that ministry. One of the things I find out I also do because of that ministry to people in crisis is I do a lot of funerals. And here, just since the virus, I've had 4 funerals just since we locked down for the virus. So that's also a big part of my ministry at this point. Somebody said something about, I think both Nancy and Bert said something about finding a church home after you leave your ministry in retirement. And that has been something that we've had to deal with. You don't find disciples churches on every corner like some Baptists. And so it's been difficult. We looked at the option of going to a nearby disciples church, which was 25 miles away in Williamsburg, and just felt like we could not participate at the level that we'd like to participate. And disciples also like to have communion every Sunday. That's really important for us. So my wife and I started going to the Episcopal Church in West Point, where we were welcomed and where we have the opportunity to have Eucharist every Sunday, and they're happy to give it to these disciples who are in their midst.
That's great.
And we've been there now for almost 10 years, and we love it. It's kind of nice that the Episcopal Church does not recognize my ordination as a disciple, and so I'm no real threat to anybody.
You can stay out of trouble.
I get to sit with my wife in the pew, and I still do some supply preaching, but I've noticed that as the years have gone by, I do less and less. And that's fine, but I do have the opportunity to do something I never did during my 43 years of ministry, every Sunday ministry, and that's sit with my wife, which is wonderful. Love it.
Cool. I'm assuming that tapping is somehow in our Zoom connection. Thank you all for sharing. That's really cool, the things that you're into. Noticeably missing among this group of 3 is a pastor who has decided to die in the pulpit. And we did that on purpose. That was the original working title for this series, was Dying in the Pulpit is Not a Good Option. and we believe that. So we commend your capacity to find the ability to say no and then begin navigating a retirement and then figuring out how your ministry weaves into that. And all of you have found significant ways to do that. Also missing from this group are people that we know across the Commonwealth and across the country who have chosen to do either interims all of the time or who are doing intentional interims and who are traveling and staying at a spot for a significant period of time. That's someone we do not have on the call today. So all that to say, there are diverse ways of getting at this. There are many ways to navigate retirement. And so there are many components that factor into a full and meaningful life in retirement. So I want to end with one question for each of our panel participants. And we have been on a journey talking about the spirituality of money, the necessity of knowing the nuts and bolts of financial planning, and then today talking a little bit more about navigating retirement. What kind of advice or wisdom would you offer to other participants who have not yet arrived at that destination in terms of preparing yourself financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, to move into this next stage of life?
Well, I think I would say financially, put as much into retirement as you can. Absolutely. You can't put too much in, I don't think. The other thing I'd say is to find a financial planner that you trust and that will give sage advice, but not try to boss you around either, but somebody that you can trust, and let them help you manage your money, let them help you manage your retirement account. I'll just say quickly on the spiritual and even physical stage of those aspects, I feel like I've kind of continued where I was. It didn't change my spiritual life. It hasn't changed what I do physically to keep myself healthy. Those were already disciplines of my life, and they have not changed dramatically in retirement. They have continued pretty much, for better or for worse, as they were before I retired.
You added in yoga.
I did add in yoga. Yeah, that's been a stretch. No pun intended.
Pardon the pun. Either of the other two, you want to respond?
Well, physically, I probably am doing better than I was as a pastor because my mother was already going to the Y and I started joining her at the Y when I retired. And now in this during this pandemic, we do exercises in the morning together and then take a walk in the afternoon to try to, keep it up as best we can. It's not quite as much as we did do. Spiritually, I love the fact that my mother and I have a devotion together in the morning and have a prayer together. That's been a blessing to me. Not something that we did, I even did as a child. Had Bible stories at nighttime, but no devotion during the day or morning hours. And that's been a blessing to me. There was one other thing that I wanted to say, because you all are in positions where you can help people with this. When you were talking about taking Social Security, I will turn 70 next month. And when I turned 66, I applied for my Social Security. And I was in the hospital and I got a call from the Social Security office. And I thought, this is really strange. And the man, I actually didn't call him back. I thought it was a crank call, but I didn't have anything to do when I was recuperating. So I said, well, I'm going to call that Social Security person back. And he told me, he said, I see that you just applied for your Social Security. And I said, yes, I did. He said, well, I want to recommend something to you. You're widowed. You should take your husband's Social Security while you're 66 and wait until the age of 70 to take your own. Well, I didn't know anything about that. Nobody had ever told me anything about that. And I said, well, I'm sure my Social Security is higher than my husband's would have been. And he said, well, that's not the point, but actually his is $12 more a month. And I said, well, that's nice. So then, I that's what I did. So now, turning 70, I'm going to be taking my Social Security, having taken my deceased husband's Social Security for the last 4 years. And nobody told me that. And the people that I've told that to say, I never heard it. But that Social Security guy, I guess that he just decided he was going to call me because he saw my application for my Social Security and said, she can do better than that. So I think when you're, you will have people, widows, widowers, as you're dealing with them in ministry. And I've told so many people about this and nobody knew it. Like I didn't know it. If y'all know it, it's because, you're much well-versed in finances. But I would also agree with Bert to find somebody that you trust. I've had the same financial advisor for 25 years. He's a younger guy, thank goodness, and he'll be here long after I'm gone. So I'll have him probably for the rest of my life. But he's really done well by me with my other money besides my retirement money that I have through Baptist Life. So I'm very grateful for that.
Cool. Thank you. Bill?
As a disciples minister, I'm part of a denomination that is notorious for the lowest salaries in Protestantism, and minister to small churches. So the basic bottom line is that of the 43 years that I spent in congregational ministry, I was a tent maker for 30 of those years. I was an editor for the government. I was an editor for the American Chemical Society, and I finished out as an adjunct instructor in English at a community college. And of course, after our kids got old enough to go to school, my wife went back to work. She had been a school teacher before the kids came along. She ended up as a school teacher and retired as a school teacher. So we had two sources of income, sometimes three sources of income most of the time. And I would simply say, beginning to end, save. No matter what you have, put money away, put it aside, because you'll need it. And that's worked out well for us. We do have a financial advisor. Like you, Nancy, our financial advisor is young, and he's going to be with us, I think, for a while. He and his wife just had a little boy last week, so we've been celebrating with them. So that's all good stuff, and we're at a place in our lives where we do have enough to live on. We're not extravagant. Our tastes are pretty simple, so we feel pretty confident, even though, like most people, our nest egg has taken a bit of a hit, but that's not going to be a disaster for us, and we're grateful for that.
We are too. Well, I want to thank all of you participants today for sharing with us. It gives us food for thought, things to think about as others of us are on this journey preparing for retirement. Joe, after hearing these three retired ministers talk, any last words of wisdom from you, financially speaking?
No, I think they're all doing fabulous. They've all got advisors. They've all saved money, and they've done the right things. And just as Bill said a minute ago, he's not living an extravagant life. I think all that comes into play. They're all, to me, doing the right thing. So it looks like you've got a great panel that knows to do what's right.
Cool. Well, on behalf of Kathy and myself, I want to thank you for journeying with us. And I want to let you know that you can reach out to Kathy. I hope you'll go onto their website, Ministering to Ministers, and find out more about the work that they are doing. they typically are on the side of the equation where they're helping where someone is in a challenging situation, but they also sense the need to be helping clergy on the health side of the equation, and certainly financial health is one of those. And CBF Virginia is delighted to work with you as well. Check us out, our Facebook page, and you can see the kinds of things that we're doing to resource clergy during this very difficult time of pandemic. Good to have Michael Chuck, our moderator, on. Any words you want to share with the group? No? Nope.
No words.
No
Thank you.
words. No words.
So I lied.
Okay. He always has something wonderful to offer. Anyway, we are delighted that you joined us, and we pray God's richest blessings upon each one of you. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.